Joining me now about where we are in this Senate agenda is Republican Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri. He's a member of Republican leadership. Senator Blunt, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you, Chuck. Congratulations on 5 years doing this job.
Well, thanks very much.
5 years filled with news. That's for sure.
That's for sure. I have the social media hits to prove it. Let me begin with the news that broke overnight from the president here. Basically, talks are now off. The idea of withdrawing at least half of the troops that are sitting there appears to be something that isn't going to happen in the near term. We don't know how long it's going to be, and I know these things go. You've been there a couple of times in the last 15 months. You said something interesting to me. It's like you can't figure out how it gets any better, but how we can leave because it'll get worse. Well,
I was there in April. I was there at Easter the year before, so it doesn't seem to get better, but I'm sure it will get worse if we leave. Frankly, I think backing away from where we were, just dealing with the Taliban is the right thing to do. Leaving troops there for right now is the right thing to do.
How do you tell an exhausted public, though? I mean, it's just sort of, there's always a reason to stay. You just said, well, it could get worse. Probably get worse.
I said it would get worse.
No, I understand
I said
that.
It would get worse, and it would get worse. And I think you've got to remember how this became the base for the 9/11 tragedy. Right. There is no reason to believe that wouldn't happen again. The Taliban, as the president pointed out yesterday, even in the middle of a negotiation, has to brag about killing an American soldier. If we leave there, that becomes the same haven it was. I think that's why.
Was this been a fool's errand ever to negotiate with the Taliban in the first place?
Well, I've been concerned we were negotiating with the Taliban and not including the Afghan government in that, and even the idea that you could negotiate with the Taliban. The problems with that have been very evident this week as the Taliban, at this critical moment when I guess they knew they were coming to Camp David. I didn't know they were coming to Camp David. But at this critical moment, they decided to brag about a car bomb and killing an American soldier. And I think it just shows who they are, and this will get dramatically worse if we decide to leave.
Were you comfortable with the idea that the Taliban were going to be stepping foot on Camp David?
By the time I knew they were going to be stepping foot, they weren't going to be stepping foot, so I didn't have to deal with that.
Fair enough. Let me talk about what's on Congress's agenda, but I want to talk first about, you voted against the president's national emergency declaration. You were one of a few who did. You were concerned about this. But let me ask you this. How many more Republicans would have voted against the president's national emergency declaration had they known the specific projects that would be targeted?
Well, I don't know, but I think 12 of us in the Senate thought that this was the wrong way to do what the president was doing. Now, I think what the president's doing is the right thing to do, but I think if you take away that congressional ability to decide how money is spent, you really take away the biggest tool that Congress has in the unique balance of power our Constitution creates.
Senator Collins thinks that this way he's doing it, she thinks, is still unconstitutional.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the courts are going to decide that now, not the Congress. We're going to have to, every 6 months, apparently, once again, double down on our view of whether this is a good thing to do or not. Senator Capito and Congressman Cole and I were at the border Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, and what's happening at the border is making a difference. I think what the president was able to negotiate with Mexico, where people aren't released into the United States but are released back into Mexico to wait for their trial date. Remember, particularly out of those Central American countries, no more than 15 out of 100 people actually qualify for the asylum they're asking for. You send them back to Mexico, they're deciding, if I go to court, there's no way I'm getting to the United States. They go right, many of them just decide, put us on a plane and take us back home.
I want to go back to these military projects. So they're not going to get this idea that this money is going to get replenished, that's not a done deal.
Not a done deal, but even if the money is replenished, the projects get done on a slower schedule than they would have otherwise.
You don't like this?
I don't think voting on this based on whether your project is included is the reason to vote. I think again, let me say, I think the president's trying to do the right thing here, and it's producing good results. I'm pro-legal immigration. I'm pro-skills-based immigration if we go in that direction. I'm pro-building barriers where barriers work, and they do work. I'm pro replacing old, dilapidated fences with new barriers that work. But I'm really pleased with what the government of Mexico has been willing to do to help us solve this problem, both at the Guatemalan border and letting people go back there and wait for their trial date. And remember, people, the whole plan was to get into the United States and never show up for the trial date, knowing you weren't going to qualify for what you were asking for.
Let me ask you about the gun issue. Mention to me some form of expanding background checks. Will that get a vote on the Senate floor?
You know, what the leader said this week, I think maybe it's the second time he said this, is we're not going to vote on bills on the Senate floor that the president's not willing to sign. The president needs to step up here and set some guidelines for what he would do. I'm afraid what's going to happen here is what always happens is we take this silly, if we don't get everything, we won't do anything, and fail to do the things we could do with more early mental health help, treating mental health like all other health, something I've worked hard on, and there's a moment here where we can expand what we're already doing on that front.
Let me play something for you from Senator Mike Braun, a Republican from Indiana. Take a listen to what he said about this issue.
And I look at it this way. If we're not willing to do the common sense stuff, probably legislation will occur that we'll regret, that will actually, I think, infringe upon Second Amendment rights down the road.
There's a couple other Republicans that are thinking this too. The lieutenant governor in Texas, somebody who's been Mr. Pro Second Amendment for expanding background checks. This thinking going, look, this incremental regulation, be for it now or down the road, what gets passed will be something you wish you had been for this.
Yeah, but Chuck, I think I heard Senator Schumer say 2 weeks ago, if we're not going to do everything, he's not willing to do anything.
Well, call his bluff. Call his bluff and see if he really means it.
Well, and if the president will let us know what he'd sign if it got on his desk, we'd be much more likely to do that.
Before I go, should the American public take the president at his word when he speaks?
Well, the president communicates differently than anybody else who's
You've
ever
said
had
that before,
job.
but
and as a candidate, the American
but he's president of the
public,
United States, and when he issues we're politicizing the weather. I mean, is there anything left?
Well, I actually, you know, I've spent most of this month at home in Missouri, and I think this whole Sharpie thing is way being overplayed. I don't think it will matter Election Day. I don't think it matters to most people.
But
right
are you
now.
worried that the credibility of the words of the President of the United States has been eroded?
No.
Okay. Senator Roy Blunt, Republican from Missouri, member of leadership. Thanks for coming on, sharing your views. Good to see you. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.